Welcome everyone to episode 21 of the Bunker Talk. So excited to have you here today. My good friend, Lisa Rigoli from Element of Change. Thank you, Lisa. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thanks first for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
A little bit about me. I've been in the HR space for 17 years, working for companies like Target and DaVita. And about 7 years before I left the corporate space, I knew that I wanted to work for myself and have my own thing that I could create and do it and make an impact. So I started my business on the side, and I actually had a handle on Instagram called the Corporate Side Hustler because that was like my
awesome.
thing. Yep. And I didn't know when I would actually leave corporate. But in 2022, the company that I was working for, DaVita, went through a massive reorg. And as a result, my role got eliminated. But it all made more sense as to what my mission would be with my business at Element of Change, where I go in and my team and we help healthcare or retail organizations that are navigating transition. We help them with trust. We help them reduce turnover so that way they could actually accelerate growth.
So much off the bat. So much. First of all, I realized I've heard the story before about the reorg. Talk to us about, the feeling of that day, right? You had your side hustle. So you knew one day you had a goal, right? But was the plan accelerated with that?
100%. And what was interesting is, like, a quick backstory is my boss, who I'd known for 4 years at the time, there was whispers of the reorg. And I kept going to her and I was like, hey, do you think we're going to be impacted? And she's like, no. And I was like, you know what? I actually believe you because we're over 8 states. I had 5,000 employees that reported under me. So in my mind, I was like, we're good. So when she resigned, I didn't think anything of it, even though there was all these rumors, because I was like, she told me I'm good. And again, my portfolio should justify that. She left on a Friday. I got the call from the CEO on a Monday that my role was being eliminated. So I think I got hit with 2 emotions. One of, did my boss know and just didn't tell me? And then 2, this weird space of, I didn't plan for this. This wasn't part of my plan. And for 3 months, I ugly girl cried while I was helping 4,000 employees navigate through, do they take a package? Do they stay? What do they do? Knowing that my role was eliminated too. So it wasn't immediate. It wasn't I'm definitely going to take my side business to a main book of business. I actually tried fighting to get a different role. And it was in the transition of how we were treating people that I realized there's not enough resources to help organizations that are forced to do a reorg. They don't know how to stabilize their teams. So I went into the CEO's office and I said, I know this is crazy because I know you're offering me this amazing lateral move, but I'm going to bet on myself. So I did that week. That next week, he's like, would you stay on as our executive coach? And that's when I switched from B2C to B2B.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
And so tell us about that. Tell us about being an employee. I'm reading this book by Patrick Bet-David, Your Next 5 Moves.
Ooh, okay. I've heard of it. Yep.
And he talks, there's one chapter about deciding if you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, right?
Yeah.
And how entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but there are employees that don't want to necessarily build the structure, but can work like if they are the owners.
Yep.
Right. Talk to me a little bit, because it sounds like you were that.
That couldn't have been a better chapter for me, because I think the reason why I never had an actual deadline date is because I liked the idea of having my business on the side, but the security of having this paycheck come in. And I was B2C, so I picked and choose who I was working with, and I felt good with when the money was coming in and when it wasn't. But when I stepped into truly being an entrepreneur, and I will throw this out here, I did have a separation package that gave me a little bit of a cushion. Sure. But when I say that I stepped into of the hustle of networking, trying to figure out where the client was going to come in, saying yes to everything, it was such an interesting experience in 2023, because as much as I was my own boss, as much as I was creating my own rules, I was still grieving the loss of this view I had of myself for 17 years and exhausted. I was like, do I even have it in me to keep going at this next level? But it was the end of last year that I actually did a self-reflection where I said, but I get to choose this. So what can I do differently so that way I can be this intentional entrepreneur? And that's when I started to niche down. I was like, how do I build out a team and things of that nature? But that chapter could not be more me of, I stepped in because I knew there was a need, but there was also this grit and hustle of, but I want it so bad to be successful that I'm gonna try it all lengths to make it work.
That is so first of all impressive, right?
Thank you.
Like just jumping. I mean, sure, forced to jump, okay, but you also had an option to stay.
Correct.
And you probably would have gotten picked up anywhere else with that resume,
Thank
right?
you.
Right? Talk to us a little bit about that grit. Talk to us about the feelings of the change.
And I mean it when I say ugly girl cry, because I don't want it to seem like, oh, it was just like this beautiful thing that unfolded. Like I was hurting for 3 different reasons. I was hurting because I was still this mixed emotion of my boss leaving and not knowing. Then there was this feeling of my role got eliminated and the company wanted me to still step in and perform. But then this other feeling of I'm not ready to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there was all these different emotions where when I say I went through all the stages of grief, of denial and anger and like just everything. Like my husband would literally just hold me at night to be like, what do you need me to do? And I get emotional, like thinking about, like, you can see the chills. Because it was just such a surreal feeling that my husband actually looked at me. He goes, you wanted an exit. He's like, the type of person that you are. He's like, what a beautiful end, because there's no one coming behind you to pick up. He's like, your team it's done, right? Like, so you get to actually start this new chapter on your own terms. And I had to hear it from someone else that I trusted to see what was possible, because in that moment of hurt, I was not thinking like my side business is going to become my main book of business. If anything, I was like, oh, maybe I will stay and maybe I'll just figure out what's going to happen. And him holding me and him creating that space for me just to be allowed me to slowly, 3 months for me to be like, you know what? I think you're right. I think I'm actually going to leave this space and just bet on myself and see what happens.
And so what's happened? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So what's happened since the end of 2022 is that I now have a team of 7 other coaches that support me under the umbrella of Element of Change, which, fun fact, that name was literally established in 2016. But now, like, there's so much depth and meaning behind it today. And I get to work with former colleagues who I've spent 17 years working shoulder to shoulder with.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And now they're in different organizations, and my team comes in, and we come in from a space of, if there's transition happening, how do we help protect the team that's staying? Because what happens is we go through this, oh, we're just going to backfill the next leader, not realizing that team that you're asking to pick up the slack, to pick up the workload, they're still grieving the loss of that supervisor. Even if they didn't like them, they're still grieving the loss of what they knew. And
right, because it was comfortable.
Yes.
There was comfort. Even if they didn't get along or they didn't like it, they knew what they were dealing with every day.
Yes.
The unknown is scary.
Scary.
Yeah.
Which there's actually stats that show that people are willing to jump ship during a transition, not even have a job lined up, because they're like, I would rather gamble with the unknown out there versus someone taking away my ability to choose who I get to work for. And, yeah, so that's like what we do now. And I absolutely, when I say that I love it, I love it. Is there still grit? Is there still hustle? I think, yes, as an entrepreneur.
Never ends.
Yes. But now I feel like it's a bit more clear on what I say yes to. And I'm excited. I'm excited.
Talk to us about the process of you niching down into an industry or a space, because they talk about that, right? Niches are in the riches, or the riches are in the niches there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The riches are in the niches, because that applies in my industry too, right?
Yeah.
Like, are you just an insurance agent that can do it all, or are you the expert in one in pest control, in, manufacturing, like in an industry?
Yep. And I think about even us. We met because we're in a part of a similar community.
Oh, we're going there.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay. And there's friendship in community. And I share that because in 2023, when I was saying yes to everything, what was the burnout is I was also putting on this new hat every time I had to step into this other organization and solve for a different problem. Now, don't get me wrong. I was still qualified, but it was wearing all these different hats. And when I looked back at my numbers in 2023, were the projects that were giving me the most fulfillment, the projects that were actually bringing in the most money, it was from my network. It was from my colleagues. It was from the people that I was working with or for. And that was in the healthcare and retail space. And I said, why try to serve all versus just actually being very intentional with my community is healthcare and retail. Why? Because I worked for Target and DaVita. Why? Because my community, the people I still talk to every single day, is in healthcare and retail. And when that shifted, when I say that my work-life balance came back from a place of I wasn't burning every single week. There's some weeks I still burn, but it just felt right. And now like people will even say, oh, your mission is so clear. Like, I know who you serve. And I'm like, yeah, can you imagine if I just said randomly, I'm a leadership coach, you'd be like, well, who do I send to you?
Right. So
that's how that evolved. And it's really true that there's riches in it because people now associate me in those two industries.
So starting a business, right? You do it all because you got to pay the bills.
That's right.
How does that transition happen? How, the mission of this podcast, my industry is very, very, and I started this podcast before I became a member of our beautiful Daily Drip community. My industry is very gracious with advice and support for anybody, old or new, not in age, just in business, right? Doesn't matter. But I don't know that all industries are the same. So I figured, well, locally, I could interview leaders of our community at what, and give advice to our community for businesses. Again, older, new or young, or old, years in business, doesn't matter, right? Everybody needs the help. But specifically for someone that's just starting a business, how do they make that transition of stop being everything for everyone? I know we did it too. You got to pay your bills, right? But it's a long play being in a niche, right? That's the long-term plan. It's the best long-term plan. How would you say, what piece of advice would you give to someone that's like, desperate to pay their bills?
I would say in the beginning, because I did it even with the security of having a separation package, I did everything from the social media aspect to my blogs, you name it. And what I started to do, and it could have been just like the HR background of, I created SOPs as I was going, but then I also was acknowledging what was not fulfilling me and what was taking too much time. So when funds would come in, that's when I knew when to start outsourcing to make sure that I was giving away the thing that was taking way too much brain power of me to do, so I could show up in this other space. So I guess in short, what I'm saying is when you're doing it all, if there's a way to work smarter, how do you start documenting what it is that you do? Because when you delegate it out, that person's going to be more effective because you're giving them not only the job description, but you're giving them the steps in which they are showing up for you that you're like, oh, wow, like that's literally what I asked for. Don't get me wrong, not everyone's perfect, but it's a guide. And I think that's really helped me as I brought on my team to help scale. I actually heard a podcast about time management, and it talked about that, about how to get your time back. And it said, as an entrepreneur, you have to be okay with the fact that 80% done right by somebody else is better than 100% done by you. Yes. And that's a hard concept for some, it's
for most, for me.
Hello.
Same. But it's the only way to scale. You can't do it all forever.
I even think about it because I said I have 7 coaches. When they go out, they're representing my brand. And I have to be okay that it's going to look different the way that they coach. It's going to look different the way that they train. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I've heard you speak, or I heard the way that you facilitated. But I don't expect my coaches to do it my way. I expect them to still have a concept of what service is element of change. And I should not even say it's service. What experience are we creating? But how do you bring yourself to that?
Right. So it's authentic for the client. Absolutely.
Because I would hate for them to be second guessing themselves on the stage. Like, what would Lisa say?
Yeah.
Now, what would you say? You now have the steps.
Right.
Did we agree them? Do we have content? Roll. Like, let's,
Yeah. It's so powerful. It's crazy when you look back at how your own business evolves, how you evolve as an owner. When you're bringing on other people, sometimes I lay down and like at night when I can't sleep in the middle of the night, which is usually every night.
Me too.
Yeah. And I just think to myself, man, like we're going through some rough times, right? Because I'm trying to scale, but also like, man, we're here.
Yeah.
Like we're here.
Yeah. And it's like
I'm
a pinch
still
moment.
in it. Yeah. Yep. I'm still in it. I haven't given up. So that's a whole other episode. I have so much to talk about. First of all, you said it a couple times already, so I know that this is core to what you do. Trust. Let's talk about trust in a team. You said in your experience, you trusted your boss. You wanted you had to build the trust for those 3 months that you were still there. What does a business owner do if there's not trust in a team? What do we do? How do we fix it?
Yeah, I think step 1 is acknowledging when there is trust issues. And what I mean by that is you'll know if there's trust issues if one of three things happen. One, if you start having leaders leave abruptly without even having another job lined up.
Yeah.
And that's back to what it's back to this thing of they rather gamble with the unknown outside because they feel like there is so much uncertainty of what's happening within their four walls that they're like, bump this, I'm out. The second time would be disengagement, which I mean by it's when people start saying things like, I can't believe they're expecting me to do more with less, meaning I can't believe they want me to do 2 or 3 roles and they're only paying me for 1. Or, oh, now there's this new leader, my time is going to restart. When you start hearing those phrases, it's like a cry for help. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be like, they want resources. They want, So, and then the other one would be if you start promoting people quicker than they're ready because you can't find the right fit outside. So you start pushing people into roles that they're not ready for. And I say that because that's when trust starts to happen. That's when people get scared of making mistakes. That's when people are scared to ask for help. And when that's happening, trust is broken and you will need another resource to come in that's unbiased, that can help see what's happening to make sense of it.
Like mend it.
Yep.
That is, so in building a team, right? And you know, there's a lot of buzzwords used around culture and how obviously we know it's important. How does one promote that, or is it something that can be promoted, right? That culture of trust. You guys have a trusting team. What about when there's hard decisions that need to be made, right? How do you not breach people's trust at that time? Like it's such a song, it's such a dance, and it's an art, really.
It's an art and it's a dance. And if you don't dance well, it can be really tricky.
I'm sure. It sounds awful, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you're here.
And I know we could probably go into a whole other episode, but one of the things I leverage a lot is Enneagram. Mm-hmm. And it's an assessment tool. If you're not familiar with it, it just measures different types of personalities and why we show up to work the way that we do, why we show up in life the way that we do. Mm-hmm. But the reason why we use it is because step one, I think organizations and teams need to have something that is a common language. Something that allows them to be like, hey, I'm not putting you in a box, but at least I understand what motivates you. I understand what your blind spots are. I understand what your triggers are. And now so are you. So how do we have a common language in how we talk about trust in a safe space to be like, I'm noticing that you're shutting down. And as an Enneagram type 2, I know that that's real because I didn't bring you in the loop on something. And it's just a stepping stone. So I share that as step one is what tool could you bring in that's not a common tool within your four walls? Because trust is broken. They're not going to trust what already exists. But what can you bring in that the team can lean into as a way of speaking, a common language?
Right. That makes sense too, because doing an exercise like that could open up, you know, people can use that as a vehicle to then say how they're feeling when a test like that is being done.
It gives them grace and space is what I say, because then they can say something like, well, as an Enneagram 8, when I get really upset, I don't know how to be vulnerable, so I shut down. And being able to say that from an Enneagram assessment versus, hi, my name is Lisa, I shut down, feels different.
Absolutely. Especially when you're doing the assessment together.
Correct.
The exercise alone is very
helpful.
It's vulnerable in itself.
Yes.
When you do it together, which obviously you suggest doing it together.
I suggest that you should do it first for yourself so that way you can process the information.
Sure.
But then you do it together as a team to say, hey, can you explain what your type is so I can understand what motivates you? What did you learn about your blind spots so that way I can help if I see it? And vice versa.
Right. It's funny. I was on a board last year in the insurance space. And when the new president came in, it wasn't as in depth, but the one question that it was like a quick, 4 or 5 question thing about like your favorite vacation spot, very fluffy questions. But then the last question, the only serious question was, what is your communication style?
So powerful.
So powerful. We all knew each other. We had all been a part of this association forever. Some of the group had already worked together, right? But us being able, when he realized it, and I think it was more of an exercise for him to be able to say, listen, this is how I communicate. I just want everybody to know, like, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sugarcoating stuff. And there was more of that than we thought, right? We all, I would say over half would prefer direct communication.
Yep.
And so it was always, there was never a misunderstanding as far as like, what did he mean to say or what, it was always clear. And we were all, I think I had never been part of an association that asked such a basic question to the board that really just set the tone for the year of like, we're all here.
100%. And I feel like let's play with this for a second. What is your communication style?
I would say direct. Yeah. I'm super direct. So the way, is it the way I receive information or the way I communicate?
The way that you communicate.
No, it's direct.
Okay.
It's super, there's no fluff. And so it's super funny because I feel frustrated when I get misunderstood because I feel like I communicate very clearly.
Yes.
So it's so frustrating for me when I get misunderstood because in my mind, there's no gray area with what I said.
Yep.
But I'm learning.
But this is why I want to play it out where I am actually more passive. And I used to hate that word because I thought there was such a negative connotation with it. But the reason why I'm passive is because I want to create space for others to be able to speak up. But what happens is that if I'm not talking or if I'm not saying what's on my mind, for someone that prefers direct, you're like, why aren't you telling me how you feel? And I'm like, well, I'm just giving you more space here to say what you feel. But it could be very confusing, right? And I get it a lot sometimes where I will speak at an event and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you spoke so well. We're engaging. And then I go into a room to network and everyone's like, why aren't you talking? And I'm like, what you saw in the training is a different person than how I actually communicate on a regular basis because I'm actually an introvert. So I'm reading the room and I'm observing. I'm only going to speak if someone's actually asking me questions. I'm not, which is why that board question is so powerful because now you're learning probably even more about me and vice versa. That's all. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because passive, I feel like while you seem passive just in general, right? But I feel like you're passive, but you're clear. You're not vague. You don't speak vaguely.
Yeah, but passive is also someone that is waiting to be called upon. Like, so I think you'll either notice it now going forward, but if I'm not in a facilitator.
Oh, I've already noticed it when we went to lunch after the Daily Drip photo shoot. You were very quiet.
Yeah, because
you were just you were reading everybody and you asked me, are you okay? Yeah. Like you wanted to make sure that I was okay. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's me being passive of I'm going to take a step back and allow others to shine, not realizing that it's actually dimming my light. And but it's just who I am. It's always how I've shown up. But anyway, it's that great question to ask where in a meeting, if people didn't know that as an HR leader or as a leadership coach, they're like, why is she so quiet?
And I feel like it almost, not that it makes you a pushover. It doesn't make you a pushover, but I think people can perceive it that way.
Which is why it's great to talk about it because that's where people create false narratives. And that's where trust happens, where if she's not speaking and she's judging us, what is that? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, that's a very powerful question that member.
Yeah. In a team setting, I understand how you would be kind of overlooked if we didn't know that. Like exactly what you're saying, to the power of the exercise when there's 50 people on a team and now we know that Lisa's just observing and wants other people to take up their space. Goal. It's
different. It's a different viewpoint.
It totally, especially like on a team where they may not have interactions with you every day or consistently. Correct. Maybe it's once a week, once a quarter. Then you're really just someone that doesn't have an opinion.
And that's the feedback I would get. I'm like, oh, no, I have an opinion. Just ask me. But I'm giving everyone else a space to speak because I'm constantly reading the room to see if you're okay, if they're okay. Did you hear what they said? Are you like, that's what I'm doing because I'm waiting for someone to be like, so what are your thoughts, Lisa? And then I'm like, oh, let me get the mic.
Oh, well, and now that I know that, I'm going to ask Lisa what she's thinking.
Exactly. It's true.
That's so interesting. So interesting. Talk to me about the facilitation of those conversations of how does a business owner that is new, right? We're wearing all the hats. We're learning here. Facilitate those kind of difficult conversations, with people that you have to take into consideration every person's
different
style of listening or interpreting information or communication.
So I think I'm going to answer it in two ways. The first way is quick. One of the most effective things you can do in a meeting is not tackle the agenda. It's actually to ask the person how they're doing. And I usually ask the question, how's your heart? And it throws people off when I ask that because it allows them to pause for a minute because naturally we're going to either respond with, I'm good, or we're going to respond with something work related. But if I ask you how your heart is, you have a moment to think and be like, you know what, my heart's actually kind of heavy. Why is it heavy? And then they go into it. And sometimes I think we're moving so fast, regardless of the size of our organization, our business, it's this need to get stuff done versus how are we slowing down to be a human, to be like, I just want to check in on you before we dive into it. Yeah. That's one. And then two, we started off about talking about dancing and how dancing can be a little bit awkward. I use a method called salsa. And salsa is a fun acronym to remember what you should be doing whenever engaging in a conversation. So the first S in salsa is self-check. Before you go into any conversation, you want to do a gut check to see, am I doing this conversation because I'm heated? Am I doing this conversation because I want to prove that I'm right? Or am I doing this conversation because I want to deepen the relationship? The A, the first A, is acknowledge the intent. The purpose of today's meeting is ...
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yep. And then the L is to listen, because naturally the person on the receiving end is going to have a response to what you just said the meeting is about. And the goal is not to respond and problem solve what they said. It's just to listen. And then from there, the second S is to share the impact. What is happening that's causing you to bring this person in? And you use I statements. I'm observing that when we're at lunch, you're not talking. And when you don't talk, I don't know what's going on. And I feel like you might be judging us. And I don't like that feeling, but am I wrong? So sharing
That's so good. Man, your daughters are in for it. They are not going to be able to hide anything.
They're not. They tell me everything right now. It's the best.
There's no way. I feel like, oh my God, that is so powerful.
Right?
It's so...
Thank you.
Your daughters are they're screwed.
They are. My husband says it too. He's like, that's why I tell you everything. I'm like, he feels like I'm coaching him all the time.
It's like you could just get anything out of anyone.
And it's the voice too. It's
the voice,
calm and soothing.
The voices.
Jay's like, he's like, I feel like you just put a spell on me.
Honestly, yeah.
So it's true. And then the last day is to ask. You want to make sure you're leaving as a leader. What's the ask that you want them to do differently? What's the thing that you're leaving them with? So salsa. So how do you just engage? And you could do that. It doesn't have to be performance related.
Right.
It could just be, I just want to share the impact of what I am noticing, what I am feeling, because chances are it's probably about us anyway.
Right.
Like we're not getting what we need. So now it's a them issue, but how do we talk about it? So that way we're not slamming doors and being passive like Lisa, depending on the situation. But yeah.
That's the bad passive.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Let's
reel it in. Let's reel it in. Yeah.
You're the good passive, the everyday lead.
Yes.
No, the bad passive is the aggressive kind.
Yeah, yes, correct. That is true.
Not the calm space giving.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, agreed.
We invite that one.
Thank you. It's here to stay.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of scared of the alternative, honestly.
Oh yeah, it's bad. It's a type 2 trigger. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a different episode.
Another episode. Give us the rundowns on the Enneagrams, like the basics on the concept, what it does, how it could help a business, a team, a marriage, a family.
Yep. So basics are, the Enneagram is made up of 9 types. And the goal behind the 9 types is that it does not pigeonhole you into saying that you're only one of these 9 types. Because actually at any given point, we show up as one of the 9. But we predominantly show up as one majority of the time, and it's based off all of our experiences up to date. And each of the types have a motivator, a blind spot, and a trigger that creates awareness in how you show up. It's very important as a leader and as an employee, as a human being, to be grounded in what motivates you. That should be your North Star. That should be what you should be spending most of your time doing. Your blind spots are the things you can't see, the things that you can't name. Other people could potentially name it, but they're just assuming that it's it. But you have no idea. But those blind spots are creating false narratives for other people if you can't name it and they can't name it. And then the triggers is acknowledging the things that actually get you so upset that causes you to show up in your not most authentic self that people may hold against you if you're not aware of it. So those 3 things, I think, is what's powerful around Enneagram, to become this common tool for people to say, I always thought that about you. And for someone to be like, oh, you did? I did not even know. Well, yeah, you didn't know because it was a blind spot. How were you supposed to know? But everyone else was seeing it, and no one felt comfortable trusting that they could say it to you without offending you.
And so what's the difference in between the Enneagram and like other tests, like the Myers-Briggs, things like that?
So Enneagram is another version of DISC. It's another version of, I'm trying to think of what else, because Myers-Briggs is more, even Strength Finders could be potentially in that same bucket. Enneagram is just another variation of speaking to it, to be completely
Okay.
transparent. Why I like it so much is that it's more robust and there's more types. I think with DISC, you only had 4. Strength Finders, I'm drawing a blank on how many there are. But when you have such a limited amount, people feel like they're placed in a box. Where if you have 9, it's like, ooh, like there's some variation, there's some range.
I don't know. I've never done a DISC assessment.
Okay.
For myself, but I do know like my Myers-Briggs, and I've tested quite a few times ISFP, and it hasn't changed. I haven't done it since owning this business though. It might be different.
Because I feel like with Myers-Briggs, doesn't it change based off what season you're in?
I don't know. I don't know. I've done it. It's been a while. I should probably retake it.
Yeah, if you do retake it, let me know, because you just said it has not changed.
It hasn't changed. The 3 times I've taken, it's been a couple of years apart, and it never changed. But I also haven't done it post-COVID or post-owning this business, which has taken it all out of me.
It might change a little bit there.
Yes. Some things might have changed.
Yep.
So I'd be interested in seeing the post.
I would agree. I
Yeah.
would agree.
How does a business owner rally the people to do these? Because, some people are resistant. So like you said, I don't want to be placed in a box. I don't want to what do we do to get people excited about participating in something like this?
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you ever watch Ted Lasso?
No, but I've heard great things. I haven't watched it yet.
So then we won't go down that route. But one of the things you can do that's in an episode of Ted Lasso, that's why I thought of it, is what's a word that you and your team can come up with that whenever anyone's feeling conflict, you say that word. And then there's a way of working for the next 10 minutes, gloves are off. Whatever we need to say about present state, the topic, the concern, we are allowing a safe space for us just to say it. And that word almost like triggers us to be like, oops, something happened. Who needs to be seen? And we show up differently because we're like, all right, we all made an agreement prior that if you say this word pineapple, that means that someone's feeling a type of way. And I want to make sure I am present to hear what their concerns are and not take any offense to it.
Right.
So to me, that is even if you don't bring in a consultant, if you don't even read a book about it, come up with a word with your team. So your team has buy-in on the word with some agreements. The agreements could be as simple as you say it when there's conflict. And we all know when we talk about it for 10 minutes, there's no offense. No offense can be taken. We can curse, we can do whatever we need to say it, but then we're going to move on with without harboring feelings.
Right. I feel like, this building a team is the most challenging part of owning a business, right?
100%.
Employees, nobody teaches you really, at least not in school, not in life, really leadership. It's something that either some people are born exceptional leaders, like with it in them. Some people learn it through reading or through courses or bringing in people like you, right? To facilitate it, to help coach us. But what do you think makes an exceptional leader?
I think it's being able to slow down to, regardless, I'm going to say it again from an Enneagram, regardless if you're Enneagram type, how do you slow down to just take a pulse of the room? Because to your point, I think business schools and certain leadership development programs, heck, even some corporations, they will do everything they can to teach you the business acumen and the business tools, but there are limited resources on how to handle the emotional demands, the EQ, if you will, of a role. And I think no matter who you are, if you're like, I don't like to be mushy, that's fine. But how are you slowing down to take a beat to be like, does the office feel right? Does it feel right? Did I notice that the person that normally is like happy-go-lucky is coming in and their shoulders are shrugged and they're not saying much? Can you take a beat every day, like just a 2-minute gut check? The first S of salsa. What is the vibe right? And if it's not, how do you ask the question of how's your heart?
Right. What's their version of that?
What's correct?
And then also it's like, I think maybe some leaders don't do that when they have a team and they're in that environment, because it's a reflection of you eventually. If you walk in every day and you have to do a gut check and the feeling is off and people's hearts aren't right and it's constant, right? Maybe it's almost like turning a mirror on yourself or on your leadership style or the culture of the business, right? Of the staff, where maybe there's just bigger problems than just checking in. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And I think I don't know if I can slow down because I'm not ready to hear what they're going to say.
Right.
And the thing is, there's also this fear of, well, what if it's me?
Mm-hmm.
And I rather just not deal with it.
Right.
The dilemma is 90% of the time, it has actually nothing to do with you. But what you said about Myers-Briggs, you haven't taken it since COVID, pre-COVID, right? Mm-hmm. There are so many stats out there that shows that the desire for connection is so much stronger since COVID.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe if we leaders are not slowing down, even if every day is too much, just once a week, just taking a quick pulse to be like, hey, something feels off. Because mushy or not, or EQ, high EQ or low EQ, you know when your team is doing something different. And just asking that simple question of how are you? And when they respond back with good or work, no, look at them and be like, no, I'm serious. Like, how are you? It allows the person to respond back and be like, you know what? My day's shitty.
Yeah.
My nanny just quit. Or my day's shitty. My spouse and I are fighting. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it has nothing to do about me. No, but do you know how much it made them feel seen that you took time out of your day to ask them that question? And now they had 15 minutes to say what they needed. And now they're able to move on.
You know, it's so funny because everything that I hear you talk about, it's really just reminding us to be humans and care.
Yes. Yes.
And why is it so difficult? Do you think people just don't want to blur the lines of professional, personal? Like, I think that's maybe what it used to be. Like, I don't think that where my parents used to work in the 80s, like when I was born, did their bosses care about their living situation? But the work landscape has changed.
I think my opinion, I think we may lean on, we don't want to blur the lines. I think it's time constraints. I think it's, I don't know if I have time
to care.
Or time to listen. Like this person's long-winded. So if I ask them how they're doing,
they're going to really tell me.
Or last week I talked to them, they're probably going to bring up the same issue. So I don't know if I have time to listen to it. And I want to give like such a small example. I'm a big on time. So the fact that I showed up here exactly at 1, I was like, all right, I'm already late. And you were very calm. You're like, hey, how are you? And in my mind, I was like, breathe. Cause this is what I teach. Like I should be able to respond back in a very intentional way. But in my mind, I was like, but are you mad at me that I'm late? Like, cause I'm ready to go. If you're, no. I know you're not, but it's a time thing. Like, it's like, but we gotta go. Like we got stuff to do. And I worry, my heart worries for leaders that are like, I just don't have the time to hear what they have to say, either in fear that they're going to say it's me, or fear that they're just going to repeat the same nonsense they repeated last week. And that's usually where our mind is. So we lean on, I just don't want to blur the lines.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something underlying.
Yeah.
And the time or the blurring of the lines is the safe answer.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, you're doing incredible work. I've never spoken to you one-on-one like this in depth about what you do. And it's incredible to see how passionate you are about it. And as a person that has lived it, right? As an employee, having a side hustle, choosing to bet on yourself, it's impressive. And you have experience, obviously, in those spaces. And what I have experienced from you is the Daily Drip partnership and what you're doing with our thought leader meetings and how much you pour into us, not just monthly at the meetings, right? It's constant. And the programming that you're doing for us. Talk to us a little bit about the Daily Drip, what you do for us. How do you come up with that stuff? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So I think fun story is Nicole was actually my client when I was the corporate side hustler. So my side business was helping other corporate women be more visible online. So I had known Nicole pre-COVID.
Okay.
And Nicole and I ended up, just COVID happened. We lost touch. And when we reconnected, because Daily Drip was growing, I was in this new business. She's like, I think this is all seasons happen. All things happen for a reason and season. We're supposed to reconnect from a space of, would you come on and help from a leadership engagement perspective? And I share that because I felt seen in that moment too, right? Of like, this is a friend that's seen me through all the different stages. And we have such a beautiful relationship, Romy included, where we actually reflect back on what they're hearing from the thought leaders around what their needs are. And I come in from a place of, okay, what's the content that I can put together that ties Enneagram into it and how to be a better leader within that space. But ultimately, I got to give credit to Nicole and Romy, because without the insights from what you all are thinking, I would never be able to create that content. but you are spot on. When I'm in it, I'm in it. Like Nicole and Romy know, I'm like, they give me something, I'm like, I'll see you in 3 weeks.
It's so
and I'm
good.
putting it together because the thought of pouring into you and the other women in a way that, oh, I can actually do something with this tool, lights me up beyond.
It's funny because I was talking to someone recently. I don't remember who I was talking to or where I was. I just know that I was talking to someone about one of my first sessions as a thought leader. It was the one where you told us to repeat it 7 times. I'm still thinking about it. Like, it's been like 5 months since that one, but I'm still on that lesson. So Ciara's a slow learner and a slow adopter.
It's all good.
Because it's funny because it was like that conversation of, what do you want to be known for? Who do you want to show up as? Do people know that in the community? Do your clients, do your prospects, do you know? Talk to us about that. How it's just so many hats, Lisa.
Yeah.
It's so many things. And it's like the episode I had with Nicole about like merging this world of we're hybrid, we're in person, we're networking. Are we everywhere? Are we too busy? Did I say yes to too many events? It's like, it's everything. It's everything.
Yeah. And I would say, I think you would agree based off what I know about you too, as much as we wear so many different hats, at the core of what we do is still who we are. And I share that because hopefully each of you feels seen within the content.
Absolutely.
And there are times where we cry, and that's part of it. Like
I need it.
and I say that because that's how I show up even as a mom. Like I make my girls feel really good about feeling seen and like,
It's so funny too. Sorry to interrupt you, but on the meetings where there's heavy emotions, you are silent. You let us just be. It wasn't the last one. It was the one prior where you were just like, the programming doesn't even matter. Everybody just let's just do it.
Yes.
And that was such a good meeting.
And I think that's, I could cry hearing you say that because I sat back, and that's where the passive comes in.
Right. It's not a bad thing at all.
It's because I'm like, all right, in this moment, each of you needed a moment to say what's on your heart.
It was needed.
And I was like, I'm going to sit back. And I remember crying, like holding back tears because I'm like, this is beautiful. And I don't even need anyone to look at me or do anything because it was a thank you in itself every time someone spoke. Every time someone felt like I have the space, that's trust.
Right.
That is trust beyond all levels.
We walk into that room and it's the trust tree.
Yes.
There's no...
We have each other's back.
Yes.
We could say something. We know it's not going to be offensive.
Right.
And what happens in that room stays in that room from a place of, I'm not going to repeat someone else's story.
Correct. Yep. So talk to us about, let's start with the 7. With why do people have to repeat things 7 times? Why 7? How should we do it?
Yep. So it's not my theory. I think for anyone that's on social media, you know that we're just inundated with so much information.
It's so much.
That we need to hear things multiple times. There's even some studies out there that it's more than 7. So 7's, I'm just saying, the sweet spot right now. If you have a team, how do you repeat your message that many times in order for it to land? Because when we say it just one way, people are not hearing it. And if you just say it once, they're definitely not hearing it. So when I say repeat it 7 times, whatever your mission is, whatever the task at hand is, whatever the deliverable is, how do you get creative 7 different times in saying it? Now, I want to share this as a joke because I think it's relatable content for anyone. But the Daily Drip, we use an app called WhatsApp, and that's our communication channel. And we have gotten more intentional with repeating 7 different times when the meeting is going to happen. And every month, there is someone that will ask, when's the meeting? And I share that just to put things in perspective of, even when you're saying it, there's still going to be someone that never heard it, which is why you increase your chances of your message landing if you repeat it more, because now the people that do know the time, it's like a joke. They're like, come on, the meeting's the 4th Friday of the month. You know what I'm saying? But it's such relatable content to, I don't understand how my team member didn't remember that we have a deliverable. Well, how many times did you tell them? Well, why?
And in what media?
Correct. What email, text, call, in a one-on-one, in a meme, get creative. We're all working with so many different generations.
Right.
If you have but get creative. I would actually my team will tell you, I'll do TikTok videos, I'll do reels if I want to share a message in a way that's going to be different for them to hear it, because some of them are going to see it differently if I do it in a reel versus in a meme versus in a text versus in an email. And that's part of being a leader. I got to be creative with how do I repeat that for action to happen. And it's back to that percentage. If 80% of them are showing, if 80% of it's getting done, I'm winning. I'm not expecting 100%, but at least it's better than 50.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's powerful too when building a team, because there's so many people, so many different, again, communication styles, workloads. People prefer emails. I get 9,000 emails a day. Don't send me an email if you want me to, if something is important, send me a Teams message. Because the one notification will go off.
Yep.
Right. The number on my email just keeps increasing on my little app. I don't have an email.
Yep.
No, because I would never sleep.
Yep.
Right. So just it all goes back to also kind of knowing your audience, right, at this point. But it's hard to do at a scale. Like with you having 4,000, right? It was 4,000 employees. How do you manage that? How do you manage all the styles?
So keeping in mind that as much as there were 4,000 reported up into me, there were only 12 that were on my true payroll from a day-to-day perspective. So a lot of what I taught them is literally when I'm teaching the daily drip, it was, what's your vision? How are you setting guardrails? How are you now repeating those guardrails 7 times? And my team will joke like that. They were like, that was Lisa's thing on repeat. They could quote salsa to you if they want. It was getting creative with either acronyms or different ways for them to remember the information, because they then had to be able to feel confident in how they were going to not only apply that, but how are they going to teach that to now their direct reports? That way their direct reports were going to do it. So it was really just creating a SOP, if you will, and modeling the way.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. This information is so powerful, because in theory I know it's way more complicated than everything you've just given us. But the one thing I have learned from this short time of us here just chatting is no matter what you're doing, what the task at hand is just show you care in everything.
100%.
And I would venture to say that now more than ever, like you had said, post-COVID world. I mean, it's just, even people that like are working from home, right? It's a whole, I don't have this problem. I do have a virtual employee, right? That's in the Philippines. And I really try to have her be as involved as possible. I really try to, show her that I care. She's an asset to us. She's been a great addition to our team. And I want her to feel like we care about her. And so I'm trying, but I don't know that it's all landing. I haven't asked.
You haven't asked.
I haven't asked.
You got to ask.
I feel like I ask, I want to make sure that everyone's okay. Like today we had our team meeting. Does anybody need anything from me? Are you good? Are you good? Are you good? And everyone gives me the same answer. But like, I need a deeper question.
Yes, but if you're cool at playing around with this, because I know.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to use the salsa method on you right now. So my self-check, my gut check is to deepen our relationship. Mm-hmm. So that's one. And that's truly what it's not to be right, not anything other than that. Acknowledge intent. So the purpose of me asking you the next few questions is I'm curious in how you are building a deeper relationship with your team member that's remote. How does that sound if we talk about that?
Yeah. Open book.
Okay.
Sounds great.
So now I listened, and I'm not going to respond other than thank you. And then I'm going to share the impact, because what I am hearing you say is that you haven't asked. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing you say is that you are doing things to make sure that she feels included. I'm curious, what are those things?
Yeah. Asking her, I'm not doing much. I don't feel like I'm doing much, because how can I all the way over there? Her being in the Philippines. See, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm making sure to take time on Mondays. I make sure to ask her, like, how was your weekend? Did you have fun? I make sure to ask her on Fridays, like, what are you doing for your weekends? I'll give her an afternoon off every once in a while, just out of the blue, so she could just, because she's working overnight, their time. So, I want her to be rested. I don't know what else I can do with such a distance gap.
Hearing you say that, I'm wondering, would you feel comfortable just saying, hey, to be completely transparent with you, I want to make sure you feel included, and I'm doing all these things, and I realize I haven't asked you what you want. What would you need to make sure you feel a part of the team?
Yeah.
Have you asked it in that way? How would it feel to do that?
It would feel great. I would want her honest feedback for sure. You know, I feel like I've been focused on just creating a space where, you know, she can come to me with anything. And I'm trying to do that via a Teams call twice a week. Yep. You know, like I talk to her about those things. I try to make it a point to see her every day, face to face,
which is beautiful,
because I want her to feel. And if there's ever a time like I'm traveling or, you know, I'll let her know, listen, I'm out of the office these 3 days. If you need me, you can call me, you can Teams me, but I'm not going to be like on camera. But, you know, I do make it a point to at least try to spend some face-to-face time with her every day.
Okay.
So that's like the extent of what I'm trying to do.
It's so good. And I'm going to, before I go to the last letter of the acronym, pause for a second to use Enneagram as an example. Do you know your type by chance?
I think I'm a 6. I got to test again.
Okay. So then the reason why I said that, because I'm a 2. And just to give context, as a 2, what you're doing is my blind spot, which is called disempower. Because I would show up in a way of doing all the things, thinking that it's what the person needs to receive. But in reality, it's making them actually feel like, why are you doing all this? But I'm doing it from a place of service. Like that's literally what a 2 is. A 2 is a considerate helper. Like I know nothing other than to provide service and to show up. But I share that because this is where Enneagram can be important of, are you doing something that's actually serving you, not realizing you haven't asked her? And I know it's what you're saying, but like that's hopefully okay.
Absolutely. No, that's kind of the point where it's like, I don't know what else to do. I know that the geographic locations is a challenge to have them feel some sort of part of the team. And I'll ask her, like, I just want to make sure that you're feeling good. Like, I want you to be happy here, like things like that. And I think it's also cultural, right? She's very, very respectful, very subdued, you know. I'm open to feedback. Give me some feedback, right? But it's never from anybody here on my team. Like I always tell them, like, what do you need to tell me? Get it off your chest. Like, what is it? You know, what is it? What is it? What is it? And everyone's like, it's good. It's good. I got to ask them what's on their heart.
What's on their heart, and even guiding the question to, like, you and I probably can do a whole other episode of it, but you are saying some really powerful things I hope others are hearing. Whether it's a cultural difference, whether it's a
generational difference.
Yes.
I have 2 people under 25 here. I'm 40. We're very different.
In my 40s too. Yeah.
But you know, it's wild because I was like, I'm only 40.
Yep.
It didn't feel that far away
until I
hired them.
Exactly.
Very different.
So that would be my ask would be here. Would you be open into asking her what you could start doing, what you could stop doing, and what you can continue doing?
Yes.
And then just say, take time to think about it. You don't have to answer right now, but I would love at the next call you tell me, because I really want to make sure you feel included, and I don't want to do something that's making you feel.
Right. I have a friend of mine, a really good friend. He's in Illinois, and he asks his team. He told me, he gave me this advice. I haven't implemented it yet. Sorry, Patrick.
She admitted she's a slow adapter.
I am slow. I don't know why.
You just take your time. That's all. It's not bad. At least you remember all of it, though.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It does make an impact on me, and I just think about stuff. Like I process things, and so he says that he would ask people, "What do you need from me to make your job better or your day better?" And their weekly calls every week, and everybody would be like, nothing. And he was like, it is mandatory for you to tell me one thing a week that I could do to make your job better. He's like, I don't care if you're you could tell me you're sick and tired of Diet Coke. You want Sprite now. Okay. Something as trivial as that. Because it's hard every week to come up with something, right? And you could veto it 1 week. You can't veto it 2 weeks in a row.
And I would even take it a step further, because I love where he's going with it. When we said that we have to repeat the message 7 times in a different medium, I think it's the same concept in how you're wording the question. Mm-hmm. And I share that because we naturally, if we're being asked, like, what's the feedback? We get shook. But could you say it in a different setting, in a different way, and see if the response, hopefully we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. So what's a better way to phrase the question?
So the one was the start, stop, continue, because it's causing them to do that. The other could be, hey, I'm curious what he said. I'm curious today. How can I help you today? Or another could be, hey, we just finished that project. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Another could be of, what do you need more of from me, or what do you need less of from me? ChatGPT is a great little thing. If you just threw in what are different ways that I can ask feedback, it will spit out a bunch of different variations. And I would really challenge even listeners, like, how do you ask that question? How do you ask those questions over the course of the next couple of weeks in different ways to see what question landed?
Right. Which one provokes a response? Yes. Because I feel like I am that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be more inclined the what did you like and what you didn't with, I think I would respond to that.
There you go.
Because in my mind, it would make me realize, okay, well, maybe they're going to take stuff off my plate that I don't like to do and give me more of what I like to do.
Agreed.
Versus what do you need from me to make your job better? Like, I feel like I perceive that question as something that's so big picture, including my physical desk, my chair, where when it's project related or specific task oriented, like, do you like to, I'm so proud of myself that I'm doing something right. Cause I did ask her that question to make me a list of like, hey, what are the things that you like to do? Because when we onboard another virtual employee, I would offload, you get first choice. You were here first. I would offload the stuff that you maybe don't like or don't feel like you excel at.
And I want to make sure I take a moment and pause because we went straight into the salsa. Everything you explained to me, I can't imagine culturally, generationally, how she doesn't feel included. I want to make sure, because you are going above. I mean that. You are going above and beyond what I hear on a regular basis of what you're doing, making sure she sees your face, making sure you're like that, like goosebumps of like how you're doing everything in your power. Me offering this up from what I'm at, like, hey, I think that this is something, like, this is what I'm thinking, does not necessarily mean that you're doing anything wrong. Okay.
No. I don't.
Okay, good.
No, I know you're not judging me.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
No, you haven't been passive and you're not just observing me. No. Yeah. I want you to know too, that even though you feel like you come off passive or that you are, you're not, at least I don't perceive you that way. It's not passive and judgy.
Good. Working on it.
No.
Very hard.
Well, we appreciate the honesty here on the Bunker Talk, but it's very like when you are passive, it is with like nurturing eyes. Like you're very alert. You're not sitting there uninterested or bored.
Yes.
No, you could tell you're engaged, but you're just observing, watching. You're not, I've never perceived it as
anything different,
judgment at all. No. I think that your care comes through in what you do 100%, because what you do for us with the Daily Drip, I mean, we walk out of there. It's my favorite day of the month.
Same.
It's my favorite day of the month. What you do for us is so special. You're pouring into our businesses, but into us as business women, how we're showing up. And I know that I'm not a mom, but I know that the work that you're doing, if I had children, or the women in the room that have children, they take it home and they're absolutely, applying it even in their personal lives. So
thank you.
What you do is great. It's great for us. It's great. Absolutely for your clients. Where does anybody that's looking for your services find you?
I would first go to LinkedIn. I am very active.
You're so good at LinkedIn.
Thank you, my friend.
You're so good. We have a couple minutes. I want to respect your time. But like, what's your LinkedIn strategy?
Oh, I have a team.
So talk to me about that.
When I was the corporate side hustler, my thing was social media. So I had an SOP. I had things that I was building out and what I wanted that to look like. So my team knows that of me. So when I say that my LinkedIn and Instagram, it may look like it's me full time. It's me from the content, yes. But I have a team that pushes all that out in a way that makes me omnipresent with my audience.
And I would say that I feel like, I don't know if I'm right. It's whatever the algorithm feeds me. I think on LinkedIn, I see most of your posts, but you're not posting the same stuff. I feel like you make Instagram content and you make LinkedIn. Yes. That's correct. I've noticed. It's very good.
I want people to know, if you come to Instagram, I want you to see, oh, she puts her pants on the same way that I do every single day. I think it's two different platforms, right?
It is.
So I want people to see that funny side of, oh, like she can get dressed up, but she's also going to put her hair down. Instagram, it's like, let me teach you so you can see why.
I appreciate that, because I don't necessarily do that. I'm doing all my content across all the platforms simultaneously, right? Like I'm posting them individually, but I wouldn't say that I tailor it for each.
It's funny how we're all much harder on ourselves, because I geek out on your content And I would have never thought of that's how your strategy is. What I think of your strategy.
Well, I don't know that it's a strategy.
Fair. The way in which you're posting. Yeah. But what I love is the way that you articulate your captions. So as an example, the way you recapped our TEDx experience, I was like, I remember all of that, but I would have never have said that in a post. That was so profound. Like, it brought me back. Even when you were talking about, I think, your interactions with Daniel, like the way the elephant in the room, and like how like elephants are like the memory, and you broke down all. You do it in such a way that it actually stops people to take a moment and read it, because it's like bite size.
Thanks. I'm trying. Well, Daniel's LinkedIn game is so good.
It's next level.
We're talking about you,
Daniel.
Yeah. I asked him yesterday, I was like, what do you want the title of our episode to be? And he was like, and it's about LinkedIn, like his. And I tell him all the time, I knew about him prior to meeting him in person. I met him in person at our shoot.
There you go.
Like, because his LinkedIn game is so good and so authentic. And so he told me, I always just hope that I just want to provide value. And I said, I think that I've unintentionally been doing that, but I realized that, like, first of all, nobody's going to sit there and read about insurance. I'll throw in like something about insurance once every 10 times, every 10 posts.
Yep.
Because nobody's, they're just not there for that. I feel like if I could just provide some sort of value, and that's how
you're doing it.
Well, thank you. That's
you
how
really are.
I'm trying to bridge like what I'm doing in my networking to, LinkedIn.
And it shows up. It shows that you're relatable. It shows that you can connect.
Yeah.
So.
And then I'm out here trying in these streets.
Listen, struggle's real.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time.
Yeah,
I appreciate everything that you do for us. I appreciate learning about you, getting to know you better, having you on my team. Your support means the world.
Thank you.
And you're absolutely crushing it. So I love to cheer for you, and I love to cheer you on from the sidelines. And so tell everybody, where can they find you?
So either LinkedIn, or you can go to my website at eocleadership.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, definitely we'll have a part 2.
I like it.